Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and a welcome to you, and apologies in advance for, I suspect, sniffing in your ears a bit. I don't know what's got me, but could be just seeing snowflakes this morning. I don't know, but we have some, precipitation in my schnoz as well. So, welcome to the show. It's the 10th of the 11th month, 2025. It's a Monday. It's the Monday after a horrific Steeler late Sunday night game, which I am proud to say I bailed on. And I don't know, maybe some of you never bothered. I'm just saying. So, guys, here's always the problem. Where to start? Well, I guess we could start with what is, to me, the incomprehensible caving. All it took was 8. 7 Dems and Angus King, who I usually like. And, they caved. They caved when Trump's poll numbers were going down, when all the polls said the people saw that it was the Republicans who were the reason the government was shut down. They certainly weren't losing the standoff, but by caving, by being the first to blink, to back up, they again give the perception, perhaps more than a perception, that they don't have any fight in them. That they don't realize who it is they're fighting. That this isn't politics as usual. That they've got to be every bit as ruthless and steadfast and unmoving as the other side. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I mean, I don't know if one of you understands this better than I, the political machinations here, but it would seem to me that they got nothing. All they did was put a lot of people through a lot of turmoil and pain and hurt for no reason. Why? What are the spines of people who populate the halls of the U.S. Congress made of? Because it sure as hell is nothing resembling bone. Bone can break, but it usually takes something to do that. These guys fade if you look at them cross-eyed. Unbelievable. So I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't know why I can say this, I get the impression that I think most people who are paying attention, who vote for the Democrats, sometimes with gritted teeth, did not want this capitulation. And what does it teach Trump? Well, it tells him what I guess he figured he already knew. They cave. I don't know how it would have ended otherwise, because there could be people dying in the streets and it wouldn't move Trump to act. I don't know. I'm beyond comprehension. And maybe some of you who listen to the talking heads, who I've pretty much decamped on, maybe they've explained this in some way that makes it understandable. But to me, it is not. And it is disappointing, which is a word that doesn't quite fit the moment. You read, I don't listen anymore, watch, I just read. And so if I'm reading what's happening on a daily basis, which I do, it hit me yesterday. I was just with the front page of the Sunday Times, that as I read the headlines, I mean, you don't even have to dig much further than that. The emotion I feel, there are many, but the emotion that now sits with me more than the others is shame. I'm ashamed to be an American. I'm ashamed at what this country has become. And seeing it becoming perhaps even worse. I'm ashamed at what we do, what we stand for. And I can say, but I didn't, but it doesn't matter. This is who the United States now is. This is what the world sees of us, where we used to be able to pretend, perhaps, that the world saw us as a shining city on a hill, as a land of opportunity, as a big guy, but not much of a bully boy. I mean, it's all over. It's all gone. And replaced with something that is so abhorrent, that is so shameful, that is so against every sense I have of what America is supposed to be, why I love this country, why I want to save this country. I mean, just some. These are just front page stories from the last 2 days, I believe. It's just unbelievable. The rest of the countries of the world are meeting in Brazil to talk about how to perhaps slow the warming of the planet and the man-made pollution and degradation of the planet. More than 100 nations are there, and we are not. We are not. And the fact of the matter is those other nations are probably pleased that we are not there. Because we're not there to bully and cause trouble, interfere and block. And yet, I read that we still are, although not present at the talks, we are bullying our way into scuttling some of the efforts of these other nations, and that we are doing them through bully boy tactics, what one called shock and awe thuggery. All these other nations had decided to approve a historic international deal that would have slashed the amount of pollution that could come from those huge cargo ships plying the globe's oceans. The agreement was made in the last few months and was going to be finalized at this meeting at which we are absent. And according to good reporting and other diplomats from other nations and some from the United States, all speaking on condition of anonymity for fear of retribution. Do you ever read a story anymore without that phrase somewhere in it? That phrase didn't used to be in stories. The fear of retribution is real, as we know. And I suspect those who speak anonymously because of fear of... Oh, shut the fuck up. What would that be about? Don't scare me. All right. I lost my train. So what the United States did is we got on the phone. I mean, at the highest level, like the Secretary of State, Marco fucking Rubio. He gets on the phone and he calls other nations and says, let me tell you, if you in fact vote for that reduction in pollution from the cargo ships, you are going to be blacklisted. Your diplomats will have their visas revoked. You will not be able to get into the United States. Do you effing believe that? Another country was told, you sign that thing. Let me tell you what happens. When any of your ships come into an American harbor, no one on your ship, not a sailor, not anybody, Nobody will be allowed to disembark. This apparently was done with a number of countries in Asia, in Africa, in the Caribbean, and it was characterized by one former diplomat as in this way: talk about a disproportionate use of force. I mean, this is really using a cruise missile to redress a traffic violation. But this is how America now plays its hand around the world. And it does it very openly. This one was not so open, had to be uncovered by journalists. Someone else said it's like a bunch of gangsters coming into the neighborhood and smashing windows and threatening shop owners. Well, that is what they do. Thuggery. And how do you read a story like that? Something that 100 nations had already said, that sounds like a good idea. Let's lower that level of what cargo ships can put out in pollution. And the United States scuttles it while refusing to even attend, scuttles it with its threats, because it's the big guy. And because it has a government that has shown that they'll stoop to anything. That thuggery is their MO, not just threats of it. How do you not feel shame? And then there was another story about a courthouse in San Diego where people who've lived in this country for 30 years all of a sudden have received letters saying that they have to show up at the courthouse. ICE wants to talk to them. 30 years, raised their families here, paid taxes, everything, and they go, they show up, they walk through a door, and they're never seen again. It's a story of how the Catholic Church has put priests on, working 3-hour shifts to be in the hallways to help to comfort people. One of the priests said, there is really nothing we can do. We can pray with them. We can bear witness. We just want them not to feel alone. They get a letter from the government to say, show up here. And dutifully they show up, knowing full well that they might be grabbed, collared, shackled, and disappeared, leaving their families behind them, their families of Americans. How do you not feel shame? The one good thing that I saw was Trump being booed. I mean, lustily booed at the football game in Washington. That apparently has suggested it might name its stadium after him. And it was wonderful to see him there, trying to talk. You couldn't hear a word he said because the boos were so loud. He didn't stay long. I saw today in the paper that apparently for the 250th anniversary of this country, they're going to put out a dollar coin. With Donald Trump on both sides. His need for adulation is, well, it's bottomless. And where he is taking us all is bottomless as well. There was another unbelievable story that talks about what happened to those people, the Venezuelan men, who back in March, April, if you can even remember, were all of a sudden rounded up. These were the ones, the worst of the worst, the murderers and the rapists. They were stuck on planes in shackles and sent off to that hellhole prison in El Salvador where they were beaten and tortured. And the New York Times did a very in-depth article about what happened to them, because you'll recall that eventually there was a deal made with Venezuela where some Americans that were held there were let go, and these poor souls were also let go and shipped back to Venezuela. When you read what happened to these people, they were interviewed by people whose specialty is kind of forensic experts in torture. And they interviewed all these men separately so that none would know what the others were saying. And they were taken by how all of them described the exact same things in the same timeline, and their bodies bore witness to what they were saying. And stop and think about it. These are, it was over 200 men who were grabbed off the streets, mostly young men, from all over the country. And you remember a judge said, that plane cannot take off. And the Trump administration ignored the court's order, and off they went. And at the time, the White House said, the president is committed to keeping his promise to the American people by removing dangerous criminals and terrorist illegal aliens. The New York Times delved deeply into the backgrounds of these guys. And what they found was that out of the 252 young men who had been grabbed, 13% had a criminal accusation or conviction somewhere in the world. 13%. The vast, vast majority had no criminal records whatsoever. We were told they were gang members. That was news to them, including the makeup artist who was sexually assaulted numerous times while he was there. So these are people living in America under supposed American law who could be snatched off the street by masked, faceless thugs, sent to a country that they did not know, into a hellhole of a prison that they were told they would never get out of, tortured, and they never had a second to state their case. They never had any due process, which is one of the things that has always made this country great. You can't do what Trump is doing in this country. The law is clear. You cannot. So the murderers, the lawless ones, the terrorists are the people in this lawless, cruel, and criminal administration. Those are the terrorists. You cannot read articles like this and not feel such shame. You hear their stories. One guy who had 3 little boys at home in Milwaukee. He was an Uber Eats driver. He wasn't a rapist. He wasn't a murderer. He was just a guy trying to give his boys a better life. And you know, I don't know. I mean, Richard's asking a question here on chat. How do you get every person in this country to stop and sit down and think deeply and honestly about what we are doing and where we are going? And, you know, I don't know, but I don't know why I'm feeling some sense that the longer this goes on and the more that sort of like leaks out of the cruelty and that it starts touching people where they are, you know, a neighbor snatched, someone they know and know is not a rapist or a murderer. I mean, I just can't believe that Americans at some point are not going to wake up. Robert Reich had a similar thought like that the other day, and he said, you know, it is so true that we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it. You know, that can be, it can be the ability to walk. It can be, anything physical or human or anything. We take things for granted. And that is what we have all done about this country. We've taken it for granted. And he's got this, I don't know why, gut feeling that more and more Americans are waking up and realizing how things they never even thought about, things as sort of amorphous as values or something that they weren't even quite sure what it meant, due process, things like that, how important they are. The fact that we were never used to seeing men with faces covered, brandishing all manner of military equipment in our streets, accosting people. That is something that we had never seen. And so Reich says, many people tell me that they hadn't really appreciated democracy until the last 9.5 horrible months, or appreciated the rule of law. Many hadn't fully understood the meaning of tyranny and the critical importance of standing up against it. People who never paid much attention to America's widening inequalities of income and wealth are now seeing its devastating effects. The last 9.5 months have been frightening, but they have also opened a lot of eyes. Let us hope so. As Lynn says, the amount of booing at Trump at that game was a sign. The elections last week were a sign. The people in the streets on No King's Day, a sign. And it needs to keep growing. And I said to somebody, they laughed, and I didn't mean it as a joke. I said, the best thing we've got going on our side is Donald Trump. Because what he is doing and what he will continue to do, quite openly, will continue turning off, sickening, and shaming more and more Americans. You know, I saw somebody wrote on social media, and man, it's so right on the money. Trump and his coarseness, and his racism, what he called shithole countries. Of course, they're African countries. And that was, in his first term. And that our fellow citizens gave him a second is still something I can't parse. But somebody said this: a shithole country is not a poor country that can't feed its children. A shithole country is a rich country that won't feed its children. There it is. You know how we always said that everything they say is projection? Well, here it is again. He points at poor countries, calls them shithole countries, when in fact we are the shithole country. I mean, even with these, SNAP and the food stamps, the fact that, in the back and forth and the constant chaos and who knows what's happening at any given moment. And then there was this little window on, I don't know, Friday, Saturday, when a court said, you gotta give these poor people their SNAP benefits. And a few states were ready to immediately, push a button and bang, all over their states, people started seeing that money in their accounts. I'm proud to say that Pennsylvania was one, Wisconsin was another, but most states couldn't move that fast or didn't. Now that those people had finally some money and could run to a grocery store and get some staples for their kids, the Trump administration said the states must immediately claw back that money, get that money from those people. Or there would be, you know what he does. They'd come for him. They'd come at the states. They'd punish them more. I saw that the governor of Wisconsin just put out a very quick response. No. No. Think that now of what we are. A country that has a president and a ruling party that will openly use hungry, poor people as pawns, use their hunger, take food out of their mouths. And that there are so many in this rich country, 42 million, who can't feed their families without help. Tells you all you need to know. And so on the same front page today, where I saw that we're supposed to now, Governor Shapiro is supposed to claw back the money from poor people's SNAP accounts, I also saw that Trump is, this time not very transparently, he has ordered the IRS and the Treasury Department to gut a law that was passed and signed just 3 years ago when Joe Biden was the president and Democrats had some control. And you may recall, it was a law that was intended to ensure that the super, super rich and the super, super mega corporations that had all the money had to pay some tax. Because the tax laws had been written so that they didn't have to. So you could be the richest corporation in this country, and there's enough tax loopholes that when you finish filling out your form, you don't owe the U.S. Treasury a penny. Yeah, that works for Amazon. It works for Microsoft. How's it work for you? And so what they've done is close up those, did you know that? IRS quietly retracting limits on the loopholes. This was it was intended so that they have to pay at least a pittance of what they'd made. Nowhere near what they should have paid if they were taxed like the rest of us. But make no mistake, this is a shit whole country we're living in, run by cruel, greedy, hateful men and women. Yeah, Russ Belt says that Josh Shapiro ripped J.D. Vance apart. I saw it. It's a great video. Try to look it up. Shapiro ripping Vance. It was very unlike Shapiro. He doesn't usually come across that way. He just destroyed him. Yeah. About his heartlessness. Well, in other good news, and I mean, I had prophesized this, you might recall. The sandwich guy walked, right? They tried this incredible Trump Justice Department, because it is his, it ain't ours. It's a Trump Justice Department. And they went after a guy who threw a friggin' sandwich at a customs and border officer, I think. Right? And they charged him with a felony. They said he threw it at point blank range, that it exploded. Which, by the way, was not true. And there were a lot of funny puns. I mean, as well there should be. If you have any, one said, let me see, it was assault with a deli weapon. Let me see if I can remember some more. It was, they fought the slaw and the slaw won. Somebody even put together a Law and Order parody, Law and Order SVU for Sandwich Victims Unit. Ta-da! In the culinary justice system, sandwich-based offenses are considered especially heinous. In New York City, the dedicated detectives who investigate these vicious carbs are members of an elite squad known as the Sandwich Victims Unit. These are their stories. I threw the sandwich, but I did not throw the condiments. Okay, all right, I'll stop. I can't, people had a lot of fun with it. So a grand jury initially refused to indict him for a federal crime. So, that old saw, that grand juries will indict a ham sandwich, now has been proven false when the clowns bringing the indictment are Trump's clowns. They can't even get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Oh, God. So, I don't know if it'll be interesting to see now what happens. Am I wrong in thinking, okay, so if the Senate now then passes, they'll do what they've said they wouldn't because of the caving of the 8. Then the next thing that has to happen is the House of Representatives. Remember them? They got to actually come to work. They haven't been at work in over 2 months. They've been getting paid. They walked out, shutting down the entire government, people, federal workers, no money coming in. But these sons of bitches got money coming in. That's something that's got to change. Anytime the government shuts down, there is no way that members of Congress or the executive branch should be paid. Anyway, if they come back, then he has to swear in that Democrat that he has refused to swear in, even though a judge has told him, you got to swear in. These guys they flout the law with a consistency that is just astonishing. They should all be in jail. Anyway, it seems like one positive might be that we might be getting closer to having the Epstein files come out. I mean, you see what's happened in England, for God's sake. And as far as I know, he was never even convicted of anything. Oh, God. So, remember I was saying how it's impossible to get your head around big numbers. And so when we hear, 500 billion, 200 million, it just doesn't mean anything to us, understandably. And I was saying that journalism has failed miserably in its reporting in terms of helping us comprehend stories in which understanding these big numbers is important. And I got something really good from Lynn about this, and I want to share it with you. I always laugh when I remember some old-time politician saying, a billion here, a billion there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. Said I can't remember who said it. But then she says, but here's something that puts numbers into some perspective. 1,000,000 seconds. How long do you think that is? 1,000,000 seconds. Give a guess. It's 11 days, 11 to 12 days. Not sure why it's not precise. Okay, 1,000,000 seconds. 11 to 12 days. Seconds. Tick, 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 tick. You have to go almost 2 weeks of ticking to get 1,000,000. That's how much one lousy million is. 1,000,000,000 seconds. What do you think that would be? Tick, tick, tick. And we have so many billionaires now. Yeah. Try to imagine the money they have amassed. 1,000,000,000 seconds gets you 32 years. In 32 years, there are about 1,000,000,000 seconds. And so when a politician says, 100 billion here, 100 billion there, we have no way of getting our head around those. And then 1 trillion? Guys, Right. We saw that Musk is what? About to become the first trillionaire? That vile human? 1,000,000,000,000 seconds. Well, you ain't ever going to live 1,000,000,000,000 seconds, I'll tell you that. None of us are. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds is 31,700 years. So when you hear the politicians talking so, offhand, 20 billion, 30 million, this and that. I mean, again, I don't know that this even does it, but, oh, God. That's a ton of money. So, obit. It's weird because we were just talking about him the other day when I did another obit. Strange. Talking, of course, about the scientist and racist son of a bitch, James Watson. You know what he shows? He shows that you can be a genius, I guess, in some ways, and still be a frigging idiot in others. Because there are different kinds of intelligence. And a lot of folks, without any of his education or ability with numbers and science, actually is a better person by virtue of their innate intelligence about navigating the world and the people and others in it. So yeah, he changed biology forever. He also did it by denying a woman credit. And this is just like the case of the woman scientist, the French woman, who was the one who, through her research, found that Down syndrome was genetic, and a male superior took her evidence and claimed it as his own. Just as the work of Dr. Rosalind Franklin was used without her knowledge so that Watson could claim, hey, look what I found, this double helix thing. So in 1962, Watson and Crick and another guy, Maurice Wilkins, who had been the one working with the woman, Dr. Franklin, those three guys won the Nobel. She was dead. She died in 1958, 37 years old. She is now a heroine to women in science. But she was just one of God knows how many who was underpaid, disrespected, stolen from, and denigrated. In fact, Watson described her as a sexually repressed spinster, even as he stole her work. Oh, and an unimaginative researcher. Another scientist who I have the utmost respect for, E.O. Wilson, the evolutionary biologist, said of Watson, "I found him the most unpleasant human being I have ever met." And in fact called him the Caligula of biology. Yeah. And because he was who he was, when he spouted crap like, whites are more intelligent than blacks, women this and that, the usual, white male bigotry. It was reported on, and it stuck. Yeah, thanks, Rust Belt. I saw that too. The Supreme Court has refused to hear the same-sex marriage case brought by that awful woman, Kim Davis, who had refused to give marriage licenses, despite the fact that it was the law, to a number of gay couples. And she was she thought, now is a good time to go back and get my name cleared with all these haters on the court, and even they wouldn't take it because, well, they got enough trouble. They're probably saving their powder to give the Caligula in the White House a little more power. I don't know. I'm not surprised. I don't think many people thought that they... I'm sorry. I was reading something. Oh, God. So, guys, I don't know. But we're almost... No, we got 2 more months to even be through a year of this horror. We have got to keep our focus and our energy, and you got to start talking to people. I think people are more vulnerable now to maybe rethinking things, because there is so much horror around us. Okie doke. I think that's it for me. Yeah, I think that is. I've been struggling to get this damn outro music playing when I ask it to play. So I'm hoping today I'm going to try to talk right up until the end so there'll be a more seamless end to the show. Now, I've already asked it to play. It, of course, is not, but it doesn't let me know when it will.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Okay.
And archived at
Talk at you tomorrow.
The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.